Hey, welcome back to my table. My name is Daniel Stombaugh. I'm just a guy who's identified how loved and adored I am by God. It's my passion and my purpose in life to help everyone I meet understand their place of value to the heart of the King and in the kingdom of God. And so, one of the ways that God's allowed me to do this was to write a book called Solomon's Song. It's a 90-day devotional based entirely out of the Song of Solomon, and it's a journey of God's expressed desire for our heart. And so, as we go through this journey together, this is actually day number 18, and the title of our study today is "I Know What I'm Doing." Now, I warned you in the last video that this particular study, this particular devotional day, remember, Song of Solomon, it's a song, and so you have three parts to every song. And you got the lyrics, the melody, and in between the lyrics and the melody, you have the message. It's of every song. But what makes a great song great is not the lyrics and it is not the melody. It's the message. And song is unlike any other. And in fact, Solomon says in verse number 1, he says, "This is the greatest song that you will ever hear in your entire life, because this song talks about relationship in its purest form." And so at times you have the lyrics, which is a shepherd girl and the king, and sometimes the lyrics are loud in the song. And the melody is the sexual content, and sometimes the sexual content is really loud in the song, and if you're not careful, you'll hear just the lyrics or just the melody, and you'll walk away from Song of Solomon or a book like that in the Bible and say, okay, that was really intense, or wow, that was like really erotic, and you walk away from it, and then that's it, and you miss the message. And the greatest song ever sung simply becomes a song in your life, not the song of your life. And when you learn to look at the message past the lyrics and the melody, Song of Solomon becomes the song of your life with God. And so today in this devotional, it's day number 18, and it's in Song of Solomon chapter number 2 and verse number 6. And so when you get to this passage in the Bible, this is a very high sexually charged passage, and so you have to really look for the message. But the message is absolutely mind-blowing in this passage here. So, remember, they were at dinner, just to kind of catch you up in the last couple of videos. If you need to go back and look at those, you can. But they were at dinner together, and she was overwhelmed with him. She was overwhelmed with everything about Solomon, and she sat there next to him. All she did was she wanted him. She wanted to experience love. She wanted to experience that sexual connection with him, and she was overcome with desire. She called it sick of love. We would call it just the inside. The gizzard's done churned. You know, if you're from the deep south, or you're Twitter pated if you live in Bambi world, whatever it was you want to call it. It just like it was time. She was like, "Let's Marvin Gaye and get it on." Like she really wanted him at that moment. And Solomon looked over and saw her, and he saw the way that she looked at him, and it was like magic. You know, your eyes connect, and that little pop of electricity and desire is there, and it's like, yeah. He's like, "Let's just do this." And so it says, "His left hand is under my head, and his right hand doth embrace me." Okay, his left hand is under her head, and his right hand is embracing her. Now, you got to look at what this is actually saying, and it's extremely erotic. But as he watched her overcome with him, like the desire mounted to him, and he pulled her into this embrace there, right by the seat or the table where they were reclined together, and he positioned her head. His left hand would have been this arm here, and he positioned her head right here next to his heart, where she could feel his heartbeat through his shirt. She could hear his heartbeat through his shirt. He put her head right there, and he drew her in a position to make love to her. And so his hand is holding her head to his chest, and his right hand, the word embrace means to clutch or to touch or to caress or to hold with your fingers. And so as not as I guess in the most appropriate way, his left hand is holding her head to his chest, and his right hand moves down her body to satisfy her down in her body. And so he's satisfying her with his hand, and the picture is extremely erotic of them together in that position. But you got to look for the message. The word embrace, to touch with skill, is what that word means. To embrace means to touch her. He touched her with skill. And the melody is loud, but the message is even louder, and that is that you can never truly be satisfied by God in any area of your life. You can never truly be satisfied by God in any area of your life until you learn to hear the heartbeat of God. The only way to hear the heartbeat of God is if you learn how to get quiet. You have to be willing to change in order to see change. We talked about in the last video how so many Christians are afraid to get quiet with God, to actually think about Him and what He does in their life. We're so used to the noise, and we have to have noise, something moving every couple minutes to keep our attention. And the thought of getting quiet is frightening for some people. There are Christians that refuse to get quiet. And your idea of getting quiet with God is in between commercial breaks. But if you want to see change in your relationship with God, you have to be willing to make a change. And you'll never be able to be satisfied by God in any area of your life. You want Him to satisfy you security-wise, as your shelter, as your love, your source of affirmation. It'll never happen for you if you are unable to learn how to hear the heartbeat of God in your life. People ask me sometimes, well, how do you hear the heartbeat of God? It's simple. Take the book of John, just for example. Take the book of John and read from John 1 all the way through the book of John, all the way through. And as you see, anytime you see an love expressed by word, by deed, by action, take your pen, underline that passage where love is expressed, or take a highlighter and underline that, or put a little heart. I put a heart right beside in the margin of my Bible, and I put a heart beside those passages where love was spoken, or love was expressed, or love was demonstrated. And then when you're done, go back through it and actually look, and what you see is up and down the pages, you see like the heartbeat monitor, you see the heart of God displayed, because Jesus was God's spoken word. He was His word that walked and talked in the flesh. And when you see that word expressed, the heart, Jesus said, if you've seen me, then you have seen the Father. You've seen His heartbeat. And it's hard to read the book of John and walk away with the understanding that God is ready to smack you upside the head if you get out of line, or if you disappoint Him or disobey Him, that God is ready to beat you down like a temperamental parent. It's hard to see when I see that Jesus is the epitome of God's heart. He was the expression of God's heart for me. And when I see that, man, it is powerful. And when you learn to tune in God's love for you, and you're able to catch the heartbeat of God, the book of John is no accident where John is referred to as the disciple Jesus loved. John people didn't call him the disciple Jesus loved. That was John's name for himself. It wasn't that God loved John more than the other disciples. I believe with all my heart it was John that loved Jesus more than the other disciples. John said, I have known my place in His heart. And every time you see the two of them together at a dinner, Jesus was sitting there and John was leaned up listening to the heartbeat of God Himself. And when you begin to listen to God's heartbeat in your life, and you understand that it's God's purpose in your life, not His fairness, that dictate the circumstances of your life, you are able to experience a satisfaction in your life. You're able to look at your life and say, I don't need people to affirm me and tell me that I'm valuable. I don't need someone to approve of me. I've been approved of by the Father. I don't need someone to give me a raise to make me feel secure in what I'm doing, because my security is tied up in God. My significance, my value, my worth is not tied up in what I have, what I do, or what people think of me. It's tied up in the heartbeat of God for me. And you have that for you. And when you understand the heartbeat of God, there is not one area in your life that you will not experience satisfaction with Him. When our ears tune in with the heartbeat of God, we understand how His motive in our life is to satisfy our heart's desire. Man, Song of Solomon, the book, Solomon's Song, it came at one of a difficult time for me in life. I was asking God to teach me. I was asking God to help me find value, significance, and worth. I was asking Him for intimacy in my life. I was craving that. Into me see is all that intimacy means. I was asking God to change people that were in my life. I said, would you just change this person and help them to love me in the way that I desire to be loved? And really that way I desire to be loved. And I was just, for me, it made me feel worthy. It made me feel valued, desired, loved. I was asking God to do this, and He was like, Daniel, you're doing what everyone else does. You ask me to meet a need in your life through another source. Now ask me for intimacy. And when I discovered that intimacy wasn't some hijacked physical term, it meant into me see. What I've been really craving for this whole time was not physical affection, although I was desperately hungry for that. What I was craving in my life was for someone to look inside here and to know me for who I am and to love me for who I am. And not have to jump through any hoops anymore. Just to have someone look at me and say, you're okay. Craving that. So when you see that, it was like the light switched on, and when I could hear the heartbeat of God and realize that every rejection I had been through in my life was God's protection over me. God said, Daniel, I was not going to let this person become this in your life because you needed that in me. You were going to continue to burn through people, places, and things in your life, expecting them to fill this hole that they could never fill. They weren't designed. How unfair was it for you to ask this person to be your source of significance? You can't. How unfair is it for you to ask this job to be your source of security? They'll lay off. Jobs change. Positions dissipate. How unfair is it for you to ask a object to be your sense of value because things get outdated, they get broken, they get stolen? When I began to ask God to help me hear his heartbeat, what I found was my life experienced unbelievable satisfaction. In every area that I craved God to meet my needs, he did. He met them. And I learned to find him in my life. And that day changed me forever. I'm not the same guy that I was in 2012, 2013, 2009, the same guy. Completely different on the inside and the outside. What was that? It was God helping me understand my place of value in his heart. And so my prayer is for you, is that you answer the question here, what can you do in your life to get quiet? What can you do, or what would you do in order to hear God's heartbeat for you? I'm challenging you today to look inside yourself today and ask yourself, what's it going to take for you to get quiet? And then ask God to hear his heartbeat for you. It will change everything for you. So they are making love up there in the balcony and by the table. They're on the floor, they're behind the table, and they're reclining their couch there, and they're making passionate love to each other, and he is satisfying her needs. She's hearing his heartbeat for her, and that's an amazing. She literally can hear the passion that he has for her, and that's awesome to me. So next time we get together, we're gonna have the afterglow of this, and it's gonna give the ultimate test for every relationship. The ultimate test for your relationships is going to be the next video. I cannot wait for you to see this. When you see this played out, it is going to change the way that you look at the relationships in your life. And I'm excited for you because that's going to be a banner day for you. Thank you so much for being with me. Have a fantastic day, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye now.